6 o'clock, I'm calling to order this regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Bandera on Thursday, December 17th, 2020. All council members are present. The city marshal is present. Keely Hansen is present. She's operating our Zoom thingy. Jill is not able to be here tonight, so Keely will also be taking notes for the minutes. Item 2 is the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Will, would you lead us in a prayer and then turn the flag?
Yes, ma'am. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all together safely this evening. We'd ask for your blessings upon this meeting, as well upon everyone here. We'd ask for your kindness and mercy, and also your blessings upon this great country during this time of strife. Lord, we'd ask that you remember and grant blessings upon everyone as we remember your Son who died upon the cross for our many sins. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 3 is visitors to be heard. Because of the nature of this meeting and because we made a decision on Tuesday to make this a meeting closed to the public, Keely, if there's anybody out there who's raised their hands, who's tuned in on Zoom, I'd be willing to hear them now for their 3 minutes.
Okay. No one's raised their hand.
Okay. I also got a text from Jill that no one had sent in any emails either. That text was at 5:01. Okay, item 4 is the regular agenda. Council, if we can get as far as we can get by about 6:15, if you'll agree, I would like to move Derek's presentation, item 5, the closed session up so that we can let them make their presentation and move on with the rest of the building and not tie them up about a meeting and not tie them up all night. So, okay, item A, approval of a street closure by James McGordy of 11th Street Cowboy Bar for 11th Street between Cypress and Cedar Streets on Sunday, January the 16th, 2021 at 6 a.m. until Sunday, January 17th, 2021 at 3 a.m. for pedestrian and event safety during the regulatory bike event weekend. I thought I missed a line there somewhere. Rebecca.
I'll move to approve the street
Rebecca makes
closure.
a motion to approve. Tony?
Second.
Tony seconds. Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Item B, discussion of possible action on a presentation by Simple City Designs about Phase 2 of the master plan project. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the joint workshop on Tuesday. But for council, our only consideration is the letter moving forward about option A or option B. So, or 1 or 2 as they say.
Okay.
So if you'd like to discuss that at this time, I'd be open to a discussion or motion. Yes, Rebecca.
I'll make a motion to approve option 2.
Tony,
Second, please.
discussion? Rebecca.
I realize that some of the new council members may or may not have seen any of the presentations from Simple City from past meetings. But what I'm really excited about this option of the plan is that it includes the actual codes for Chapter 14 of our zoning ordinance, which is the mechanism that the plan will need to have any kind of actual impact and effect. So I'm looking forward to building through this phase with the team and the community, and I'm really excited to get on with
Absolutely.
it.
I totally agree. Excuse me. And folks, I got tested and I was negative yesterday, but I will be coughing and carrying on. Sorry. Allergies.
'Tis the season.
Yeah. Did you want to comment, Tony?
No, I did. I did see the presentation, and it just, in my opinion, it just makes more sense. It's no sense in going forward with something where you don't have any meat or enforcement behind it. So, I think that changing them as you go and as you go together, it just makes the most sense while you're doing the work. Just get it all done.
Well, not only something that I think we are all cognizant of is the fiscal part of this. It'll save us nearly $15,000 in the long run over the total
If you do it together,
of the plan, so.
agree.
So
Yes, Rebecca.
just a question though, will we need to come back with a budget adjustment, or is there a line item in the budget that the additional cost can be taken from?
What I think will be the best way to go, we didn't budget, we budgeted for this 1 year, not knowing how far we would get in this. We've also got EDC money allotted for this. So I believe we will have more than enough
Okay.
money to cover this in one way or another before it's all over.
Yeah.
But I will definitely let council know how we're going at it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Yes, Darcy?
I just wanted to say, I saw the presentation as well, and I thought Simple City did a great presentation, number one. And I also find that option two seemed better for the community. It seemed like there was gonna be more community involvement. So the community had more ways to show what they wanted. And that's what I liked most about option two when I saw the presentation before I was elected to council. And so that's what got me excited before I was actually here, so.
Well, and from my point of view, I've heard it said, why are we getting a master plan? We have a master plan. We do not have a master plan. What we have is basically a master land use plan, because there's no, it stopped at, okay, here's what you'd probably want to do, but there's nothing about how to get there. There's no process for achieving, the zoning changes and what you wanted to make this thing happen. So I think this is really an important phase that we're getting into. Okay, further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Okay. Item C, approval of an ordinance for an unassigned balance transfer in the amount of $150,000 from the general fund to the utility fund. As we spoke, when was it, the last meeting, I suppose?
2 weeks.
Because of the Texas Water Development Board grant / fifth thing that we're going after. Texas Water Development Board wants to see that we have the funds to operate for 30 days, free and clear of anything else. So that's the only purpose for this transfer. It's not going to be spent, it doesn't move anywhere, it's just, there it is. Darcy?
I make a motion that we approve that resolution
Thank
for
you.
ordinance.
Jerry?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Okay, I believe D is gonna take us a little bit of time. If we could move on to E, that's a quickie, that's a routine thing that we do every year, because we are not able to amend our budget completely until we get all of the bills and all of the revenue in, which doesn't come in until November.
Move to approve the
Okay,
ordinance
motion to
adopting the
approve.
fiscal year budget, 1920.
Second?
I'll second.
Darcy seconds. Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Y'all think we might want to hang on to the hot tax thing for a while, because that might take a while as well. I will reach out to Derek. Is Derek?
Both Derek and Temple are online. I do have to change to a different
Okay, so what I'm
Zoom
going to do is I'm going to recess the regular session at 6:09. Okay. It's 7:11. I'm reconvening the open session. Item 6 is action following the closed session. The city council will convene following closed session to consider any action recommended to be taken during the closed session. At this point, council, unless you disagree, I believe this is a no action item. So we'll be taking no action on this item. Okay, let's move back up to item D. Approving a resolution, approval of a resolution amending the Bandera personnel policy to include a compensatory time off policy. This has been floating around here for a couple of meetings now. As has been stated before, our employee manual does not have anything about a comp policy. And so if council wishes to establish a comp policy, we need to get that straightened out and get it lined out and get it the policy amended. This all came up when 3 of our hourly employees were made exempt employees. Yes, Tony?
Go ahead, finish your thought, finish your
Okay.
thought. That's
Oh, well, that's it, and that's what it came up, and then the question was, would they be allowed to have comp time in lieu of overtime? Tony?
So, I've been around this block a few times. When I was on council last time, it was a very disturbing thing happened. We hired the Department of Works director with a clear representation of what his job would be, what his salary would be, and that he would expect overtime. In April of that year, nearly 3 months, possibly 4, after he was hired, and after he worked minimal overtime, but during that month he was provided and paid overtime. He was given no warning, just, you're not getting paid overtime anymore, with no explanation, and you just have to wait till the new city administrator gets here and you can talk to him about it. And so he waited patiently, and he talked to the administrator about it, and then we ended up with it on the council agenda because he had worked overtime up until this point, and the staff decided they would not pay him. And so we had to make a motion at the council to get him paid. Then they chose not to even pay all of it. But he dropped it, he was over it, he was tired of messing with it, tired of fighting the fight, and we went on. So now all of a sudden, we get more positions that are now being told that they're not required overtime, and now all of a sudden we're getting a policy. I find it strange 3 years later, but here we are, almost 3 years later. So although this agenda item specifically states that we are amending the city council personnel policy to include comp time off, I believe our policy, it needs to be a little more fine-tuned to support our department heads and their decisions, to support their job descriptions, to where it's clear when we hire someone that if a decision is being made while someone fills the position, that they're not treated the same way that we've treated people in the past. That there's a level of recourse, there's a level of authority, there's a level of change. You make a decision and you should mitigate that change, and you should do change management. And it shouldn't be a shock to the employee when they get their paycheck and they ask, where's all my pay? Where, if they're expecting the pay. So with what Darcy said last time, I asked her to send me exactly what she wrote in open session, and then I added my stuff to it, some of the things, and I organized it in a table that y'all all have now. It excludes the part that the FSLA, that Will had pointed out, that the FSLA has specific overtime and all of the different things for the marshal's department. So it specifically states that it excludes that. But I think it's important, the pieces that I think are important are the fact that each job description that we have, each position job, it should state what the compensation type is and the required duties, because the FSLA has a very distinct checklist on what makes it exempt and what makes it not exempt. And not exempt are typically people that are hourly, they're more of a blue collar, that's the way they explain it in the FSLA. The non-exempts are typically salary, your managerial positions, and that kind of stuff. So I think we need to take this opportunity to make our policy better for the employees and easier to manage for the department heads. And this was my shot at it, with a lot of what Darcy had provided in the last meeting that I really wanted to look at and study. So a lot of it is just, kind of typical verbiage about the position, job, compensation type, and required, and I need to add required duties shall be in compliance with the FSLA, definition of exempt versus non-exempt, and it goes on to say some more information from those laws. City of Bandera positions shall be designated with an hourly non-exempt, salaried non-exempt, or a salaried exempt compensation type. To me, we discussed that in the last meeting. Those are the 3 things that we have in our, because we do have some we have an option to have a salaried non-exempt. They'll guarantee an annual salary, but that they would, I mean, that was kind of the situation we were in before.
I know.
So, if changes to the, and this is the point, if changes to the compensation type are required while an employee fills the position, the department head shall get a change request approval from the city administrator before changing that, and then the city administrator would obtain the change from the city council. So department head will go to the city administrator. If the city administrator is the level that needs to the change, he comes to city council. Schedule type shall be regular, flex, on-call, or law enforcement fire protection / fire protection. I think that's important to have the flex in there because department heads may, like for instance, we talked about the Department of Public Works. It's important that they have a flex schedule so that that department head, whoever that may be, utilize the flex schedule to be able to manage the workload and the budget because they're the ones in charge of their budget. And so if our Department of Public Works positions are flex rather than regular, or flex and on-call, maybe they have two statuses or whatever. City of Bandera positions shall be designated with schedule type. Schedule type should be allowed for the duties of the position. Again, distinguishing City Hall versus on-call 24/7. And they shall be enforced by the department head at this time of hire. If the changes are required, department head shall get a change approval from the city administrator to transition the employee accordingly to include notice. Hours scheduled, that goes to just a work schedule, but it specifies hours worked, that it's basically up to the department head to manage the hours worked to the hours schedule, give the employee notice. A lot of it has to do with just agreements of it. Overtime hours definitions shall include hours worked for the city of Bandera in excess of 40 hours at any work week. Paid leave such as holiday or vacation shall not be counted in determining the overtime hours. So if on Memorial Day weekend you got an 8-hour holiday and you work 10 hours the next 4 days, you've got 40 hours. That's not, to calculate overtime, I did that wrong, but you don't use that 8 hours that you didn't work as a holiday to calculate what you work over 40.
Hours worked and not vacation.
Yeah, so if they work 35, they're not going to get 3 hours of overtime with a holiday week.
Correct.
Overtime hours and pay qualification shall be determined by the employee's position and duties as defined by the FSLA and regulations. Employees may be required by their department heads to work overtime hours. However, employees' required overtime hours shall be in compliance with the laws governing work hours as well as the City of Bandera budget. Overtime for employees performing law enforcement and fire protection doesn't, it quotes some of the FSLA in there. Overtime hours paid, non-exempt employees shall be paid overtime at the rate, and this is my opinion right here. We hadn't talked about it, but I kind of ironed it, leveled it down. I know a lot of people have a different opinion here, but non-exempt employees, in my opinion, should be paid overtime pay at a rate of 1 1/2 times their regular rate of pay after 40 hours in the work week. That's the non-exempt. That's not where my opinion comes in. My apologies. That's standard. Overtime hours shall be worked in the pay period and paid when they're earned. So overtime people will get paid overtime. There's no comp time. Exempt employees shall not be paid overtime. So basically, in my opinion, our non-exempt should be getting their paid overtime as they work it. It allows the department heads to manage their budgets better, as Rebecca pointed out last time. And we pay it as we go. The departments have to manage that themselves. When you come to non-exempt, you have a little more flex, and that will come down a little further. But comp time hours may also be referred to as comp time. Comp time hours shall include hours worked for the City of Bandera in excess of 40 hours a week. Paid leave such as holidays, same verbiage as before. And then comp time qualifications. Comp hours and pay qualifications shall be determined by the employee's position and duties. Employees may be required to work comp time. However, employees required to work comp time shall be reasonable in compliance with the laws governing work hours in City of Bandera budget due to their position, duties, and responsibilities and level of decision-making authority. Comp time hours for employees performing law enforcement, more verbiage that doesn't apply for them. Comp time hours accrued. Comp time hours accrued may also be referred to as compensatory time hours earned. Exempt employees shall accrue compensatory time hours at a rate of 1.5 times their hours worked over 40 up to 45. So this was what I was going to explain a minute ago. So if they work up to 45 hours, then that 5 hours they get time and a half comp time. Because to me that's sort of your managers, that's not too much to expect for them, but you don't want to overwork them. You don't want to overwork them, but you want to give them some sort of leeway, some sort of flex so that they can do their job if there's a project going on, and then they can take a little time later. But we don't want to encourage them to accrue comp time. So anything over 45 hours, do it a 1-to-1. So if they work 40 or work 50 hours, then they would get time and a half for the first 5 and a 1-to-1 for the next ones. I read some studies on why I came to this conclusion. Mainly because the 45-hour work week for an exempt employee is standard. Most people kind of expect to work about 45 hours with their managerial and professional duties. But by allowing them comp time to take it at another time when the workload is less, then you have happier employees. But at the same time, you don't want to encourage them you want them to do their job within their hours allotted, because if they start accruing more comp time than that, then maybe we don't have the right person for the job, or we don't have enough people for the job. We've got too many duties on the job. And I think that's kind of where we got into the last time this happened, was that we kept asking, do you need help? Why are you working so many hours? And we just kept getting no feedback from that employee, and we ended up getting taken to the coals. We ended up, it was and it got into a loop that I had explained earlier, and so
It was
I think that
complicated.
I think it's important to compensate to some degree, but when you're having somebody work more than 45 hours, you really need to consider that there's something else wrong with the problem. There's something else wrong. So, not to elaborate any more than that, comp time shouldn't exceed 40 hours. I think we tossed around several numbers, but I think that was Darcy recommended 40 in what she said last week, and I read some other things too. And as small as we are, if we allow more accrual than that with the vacation time and with the comp time, we're just too small. We can't keep letting people off. We get into the loophole where we're not getting our jobs done. So non-exempt employees shall not accrue non-exempt shall not accrue comp time. So they get overtime, exempt gets comp time. And I'm almost done. Comp time hours accrued shall be used within, I took account what Jerry had mentioned about certain pay periods. A lot of people say by the end of the year. I think within 3 months is a reasonable amount of time to work it in with vacations that may be scheduled, because we are small and all of that is impacted. But if it's found to be at no fault of the employee that the time was not used, then the employees may request permission to extend that to 6 months, and the department heads shall make the request to the city administrator. City administrator would request it from the city council. And I think that came from Darcy's stuff that she had stated last 2 weeks ago. City administrator and department heads shall be responsible for ensuring each employee is using compensatory time accrued as soon as possible after earning it. The other thing would be, I don't know what kind of tracking mechanism we have to allow the department heads to track comp time, but I'm just going to throw that out there that I know we have encode for overtime, which is pretty easy, but comp time.
May I throw this out there?
Yeah.
We have something called a Time Clock Plus, and for those employees that are going to be eligible for comp time, it can easily track that for.
Okay, good. I just thought of that when I was putting this together before, and I thought of it. So then, so that's good. And then some of these things were in Darcy's mention about the buyback of compensatory time. It may be used for any purpose desired for the employee. The city of Bandera shall have the right to require employees to use earned comp time at the convenience of the city. And then the city of Bandera shall retain the right to pay or not to pay all or part of the employee's accrued overtime worked hours at the time of termination. The city of Bandera shall retain the right to pay or not to pay all or part of the employee's accrued comp time. One's supposed to be one's overtime and one's comp time, same kind of, but at the comp time, it's at the rate of because it's usually in hours, then we would have to calculate an actual payment at time and a half of their regular rate in order to get, comp time rate to pay out, if we chose to do so. Other issues, if it's not, and basically this is just kind of a disclosure statement that if it's not covered in FLSA, and they want to raise anything else, that it can be reviewed by council for final decision. So
Let me just make a quick clarification, just where you just left off overtime hours on the last page, where it says the city may or may not. I would like to clarify that particular into if an employee is terminated for cause, they don't get to get that kind of stuff. If they are terminated, period, they don't get to get the compensatory time. But if they resign with, the proper time and as our employee manual or as their contract calls for, then I think they should be able to get that time.
yeah, I definitely would not disagree with fine tuning that thought, but I didn't know if we wanted to even consider buybacks for compensation. So that.
Well, that's a council decision, that's just my
Yeah, no, I agree,
suggestion.
and these are not, it's not all as one, set as one, it was just a kind of discussion points and finding out where we have common ground and where we want to discuss, so, okay.
Well, I actually agree with everything, because with you, I was in that same situation, and actually, a misunderstanding at the hiring of that employee is what actually,
Yeah, it wasn't a misunderstanding. We know it was explained exactly how that overtime could be used, and there was no misunderstanding.
are you talking about my?
Are we doing Rose?
No,
Oh, shoot,
okay, then yes, I totally agree with what
Okay.
you're talking about.
all right.
Yes, Jerry?
Couple of these here. A lot of this is good,
Thank you.
okay? But I think there's a couple legal issues here. I'm very, very confident. First of all, exempt employees cannot accumulate or be paid overtime or comp time. That's the law.
Exempt
What
employees?
law? What
They can't
law
get
says-
compensatory
Look 'em up.
time.
Look it up, I can't quote you
No,
right now.
I'm
but
just,
I've been
I just
there.
want a general.
I've been there,
Okay, well,
all right? You can't do that. So
Sorry,
this is
Jared,
a question
can
for
you
the
can you
attorney.
point out where you are?
Yeah, I'm looking at the comp time hours accrued.
Comp time.
Second paragraph, exempt employees shall accrue comp time.
third page.
Third,
It's always
second or
been my
third?
understanding.
Sorry, hold on.
With any other company,
Accrued.
that
Okay.
you can't do that.
Well,
I
let's
can be
let that
wrong.
be,
Okay.
let's
I
let
can
that be a
wrong,
question
but
for our
that's something
attorney.
to check on. This is,
I just want to ask the
yeah, go ahead.
question, because specifically the FSLA does not cover exempt at all. It covers strictly non-exempt. So I was genuinely asking,
Yeah,
is there an exempt employee law that you're quoting or that you're referring to
yeah,
that's
and I couldn't
outside of
tell you where it's
SFLA?
at. I just
Okay.
know through experience,
Let's refer this to
HR's
our
always
attorney.
made that clear
Okay.
to us.
Okay,
And then the second area is under overtime hours and comp time hours accrued at termination. I don't think you can decide whether you're gonna pay them or not. I could be wrong there, I'm pretty sure.
No, if you earn the time.
If you've earned it, you can't decide you're not gonna pay them.
at termination?
You just can't do that, that's not legal. That
I
definitely,
don't know.
that definitely is not legal.
For
And they
overtime,
must be paid.
If you earn.
Okay, well, let's make that
Yeah,
another attorney
and
question.
they must be compensated at time and a half. So going back to that other area, the 40 to 45 hours, even if it is legal to accrue comp time as a exempt employee, you sure can't say you're gonna pay them 1.5 times for the first 5 hours and then straight time on
well, some of the
next
examples we
45.
were given, they accrued 1 to 1 hour for, comp time. I know that
And I'm not
exempt has a
picking
range of.
on this, I mean, that's just two concerns that I have in there,
Okay,
and I feel
And they can be
confident.
verified,
And I've been
yeah.
wrong plenty of times when I've been confident, but it's definitely something that we can't just jump into without double checking.
Darcy?
Well, and I think that, I would like us to take some action if we can all agree, like, we're not, as a whole body, we're not gonna sit here and be like, 100%, I completely agree. This is somewhat of a large document, we've all had different experiences, and so I think if we can come to a consensus of, you know what, that sounds good, and that's, something that we can have Dan look at, after we get done with this, and he's like, yes, this is legal, then I think that that's the area we should go in my opinion, instead of going, well, I don't like that, or, we need to talk about it. So, cause this needs to happen soon, or we're gonna get ourselves in a big mess. And I'm gonna agree with, Jerry on several of the points, actually, like with if you're an exempt employee, you shouldn't be getting comp time or overtime. You're an exempt employee, you're salaried for a reason. I think we need to compensate them in a way, with an increased salary, or, where you have more of a flex schedule. I'm a salaried employee, I have more of a flex schedule. If I left I was gonna leave way earlier, but I only left 30 minutes early today, but yesterday I left work at 11. I could do that, I wasn't busy. So that allows for me to do more work at home, should I choose to
So you're
do
saying
that.
you would rather have exempt employees on a flex schedule than on a
Yeah, and
compensatory
I
schedule?
think that doesn't necessarily mean, and let me throw this out there, that doesn't necessarily mean, say, the city secretary, for instance, because she's salaried, that doesn't mean she just gets to decide that she doesn't come in until 11 o'clock tomorrow for work. That means she checks with her supervisor and says, hey, I just got done working the city council meeting last night, and, I worked some extra hours, and I did the fishing thing the other day, and I really, I might be tired. Do you think it'd be okay if I came in at 11 tomorrow?
That
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
That happens quite a bit. I can't speak to the entire situation with any of the exempt employees, but definitely that's something to put into the,
Sure, that would
The
be
working
more of a
policy.
flex schedule.
This is just going back, just briefly, as reinforcement to what I already knew or felt I knew. I don't even know where I got this for sure, but no overtime compensation for exempt. FLSA and are expected to provide necessary and reasonable overtime services with no additional compensation. This is coming from FLSA. The salaries of these positions are established with this requirement in mind. And then I think you maybe gathered this up, Darcy, who, I don't even know who it was from really, another town. Jill. This is to Jill. She must have inquired at one of these cities. And our attorney informed us that it is illegal for exempt employees to accrue comp time. So that falls right into what I've always been told in my
So-
previous experiences.
right. But on the other side of that coin is exactly what Darcy, something we're gonna get to later in the meeting. Fine, you don't get comp time. You can have flex time, but we're also gonna compensate you because we expect you to be here more. And like Will, Jill, Will's law enforcement, these guys are all, if there's a water main and the guys are out in the freezing ass, excuse me, public, in the freezing weather, and this has happened too, 13 hours trying to fix something, then, yeah, the department
They're
head
hourly.
should be,
My last
not the guys, but the department head should be compensated for sitting out there. Yes, Jerry?
last thing I have to say on this, I think I could be in agreement with the plan that was put together, except for those two areas, and that's always something that can be deleted or whatever, but I wanna make sure that we are covered on that through our attorney or whatever it may be before we put this in writing. So that's my
Let me
point,
see.
I guess.
Darcy has
I think we need to make up our mind as a council, you as a council, whether we want to go with the flex schedule and an increased salary, or we want to go with comp time. Darcy?
I agree with that, but I definitely would say no comp time. I would say flex schedule or, an increased schedule, or an increased salary.
Exactly.
So that would be my 2 cents on that, but, I feel as though from the last conversation that we had at our council meeting, that the real reason, besides legality, that we're having this discussion is expense, right? It's our budget, so, you know, why do we wanna pay overtime? I don't wanna pay overtime out of the budget. So to even give overtime to anyone other than law enforcement doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think we should do overtime for anybody other than law enforcement. That's what you give comp time for. I give everybody comp time that's exempt.
Exempt, yes, but as not the non-exempt. Yes, sir.
I do disagree there. This will probably surprise people. I feel that Public Works has little or no control over the overtime that they accrue. If they get a call in the middle of the night, and man, if I was one of them, if I was willing to go out at 2 a.m. in the morning to repair something, I would wanna have the choice of time and a half overtime or comp time, time and a half.
I don't believe Darcy was speaking of the hourly employees. I think she was only speaking of the
Oh,
exempt
were you
employees.
just
I am
referring to
speaking,
exempt?
I'm actually speaking of hourly employees, but I was trying to finish my thought was that only hourly employees, nobody should get overtime except for law enforcement.
Right.
Because it's a budget thing. So yeah, everybody wants extra money, I want extra money too, but when it comes to overtime, one of the biggest reasons we're doing this is to save money, you know, so when you give them comp time, it keeps us down from, you know, having to pay those hours and from people possibly abusing the system, which I've heard over and over again, that this is also why we want the policy. Of course, haven't experienced it here, but, you know, that keeps that abuse from happening. You can turn around and flex those hours out, you know, with the comp time. You know, if they're out there in the freezing cold and they're out there for 6, 8, 12 hours, you can still flex that out. You can comp those hours out to them.
We've got such a small crew, I don't know how that would work for the hourly employees. I think they need
Then
to
we
be.
hire another one, because it's cheaper to do that than it is to pay overtime. Because if we're paying a guy, you know, or 3 guys because they're out there fixing a water main at time and a half, is it not cheaper to hire one more guy for the whole year and have that extra person to cover those comp time hours? It absolutely is cheaper.
I don't think that would, okay, onward. Yes, Tony?
So, yes, what you're saying in a pretty world would work great, but it's not a pretty world. We don't pay those people very much. They don't stick around a whole year. We've pretty much run the Department of Public Works at least one man short year round. And so if we have, I mean, we haven't had a flood in a few years, but you know, if something disastrous happens or something major happens and you've only got 3 guys on staff that are experienced that to go out on call, and you don't even as a manager have an option to even manage an overtime budget, then to me we're backing them in a corner.
Absolutely.
I believe that our job is to give the tools to our department heads so that they can manage their crew and their departments within the budget that we give them. And if that budget, if we give them a salaried budget and they end up running 4 people instead of 6 people, and they're paying them overtime, but it's still less than the cost of 6 people because we pay our insurance. Every employee gets insurance for free. There's other benefits on top of just salary that's not just overtime. So you're adding, so by your theory of hiring another person that it's cheaper, by adding all of the overhead that with that one employee, even if we paid those 2 employees the exact same without overtime at all, I would argue that that's not going to be cheaper because, like I said, we pay their insurance, we pay for their and everything else.
TMRS.
So to me, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by saying in all cases what you explained would be accurate. I think we need to put that in the department head's realm to stay within budget, and if they want to run their department on 4 people instead of 6 to stay within the salary,
Well,
then
let's get back here onto the subject of this comp time policy, because we're really not discussing time and a half for hourlies right now, if that's okay with everybody. for the sake of conversation,
So, just
yes, ma'am.
everything I've read says that we can choose, the employer can choose to give their exempt employees comp time. We are not required to do that. I'm all for flex schedule. I think it would work in the city hall. I don't think flex schedule would work out in the field.
No.
And so our Department of Public Works director would fall in that. I mean, there's, and so I think that I like policies that work for everybody as much as we possibly can. And so if it is legal to provide comp time, I think we should keep it with a good scope, a good handle on it. But I think we should give our department heads that tool, to run our professionals, give them some comp time. And if we see it's getting out of control, then, then we raise it to the administrator.
Yes, ma'am.
If that's the case though, then my opinion is he would need to go back to hourly and then we give him comp time, because it would do the same thing. If not,
Excuse me.
then what we need to do is keep him salary and raise his salary. Because if you're gonna give him comp time, what's the point of being salary?
So do we have that choice? Through all of this thing, I was explained that his job that he does falls under an exempt FSLA category, and there's very distinct checklists. I don't think we have the option. I think what he does as a manager, he is an exempt employee.
He was an
and
exempt
so
employee. You all looked at the, what we had in council several weeks ago, the desk audit done by Clarissa, I believe Clarissa Rodriguez did it. Anyway, so you all had an opportunity to see the desk audit, and it was determined by the FLSA standards that those 3 employees that we made into exempt employees qualified down the line as exempt employees. Yes, Darcy?
That's right, they would qualify as exempt, and I think there's some confusion between exempt, non-exempt, and if that means that you have to be salary or not, if you have to be salary or hourly. Just because you're exempt or non-exempt does not put you in a category of hourly or salary. So just because he's exempt doesn't mean that he has to be salaried. So we could still pay him hourly, give him overtime or comp time as we choose.
I agreed with you until that point. Yeah.
I was
That's not
exempt
true.
law. It is true. I was exempt law enforcement for
Well, there's
11
three-
years.
there's
and
three
still
Okay,
examples.
okay, hang on, one at a time.
overtime.
But there's 3 examples here that's telling you it's illegal. One of them came from Jill.
Awesome. I'm telling you, life experience, what I did.
Yeah, and I've got quite a bit too.
And I have seen some updates in the exempt,
You can't do
non-exempt, so that could be that something's changed along the way, and I agree, we should decide what's our choice 1, and then what's our choice 2, and if choice 1 can't be done legally, then we move on, because we can,
That's all I was saying.
Right.
I'm sorry to speak out of order, but that's all I was getting at earlier with those 2 things. If it can be done, okay, but we definitely need to check it out because we have 3 good examples. I'm one of them. And then we have 2 other ones in writing from other cities that say you can't do that. So that's
Okay.
all. We just need to check.
Will do. Rebecca?
So I just wanted to really thank Tony for putting this together. And I think we've identified some questions that we need clarification on. So I would suggest that we forward this along with our questions to the city attorney for review and then and get it back on our next agenda for
Right.
finalizing.
I have 2 things marked. The accrual.
yeah, the rate of accrual, if we have any say
The
in that.
buyback, and what else?
The buyback, and then the comp time for exempt, comp time for exempt. And I can retype with the notes that I added based on our discussion and then highlight. I can send it back to you to forward if you'd like.
This isn't anything, I'm sorry, this isn't anything that I wanted to turn into an issue. I'm all for what you put together here, the 2 of you. I think, just like Rebecca said, I think you did a great job. but I just have some legal concerns on a couple of these items. And for me, it would be pretty easy to sign off on, you know, if we had those addressed.
Yeah, no, I never intended this to go without legal, I mean, yeah, for final, so. All right, I'll do that and I'll get it to you, Suzanne, tomorrow. I'll type it up and highlight the questions that we had for you, and then you can put your spin on it.
So one of the questions is, can exempt employees be paid hourly? Is that what the question?
I'll type it up
One endorsement.
and I'll highlight the areas that and I'll send it
Okay,
to you
because I've got
and you can.
these three things already.
Yeah,
Please,
and then,
if you'll-
and then you can add whatever
No,
you
then you
got.
send it to me and I'll
Yeah.
send it off and
Yeah,
I'll make
I'm
sure
not-
everybody gets a copy of it as soon as we get it back.
And if that specific position is exempt as
So at
well.
this
Yeah,
point,
I'll-
do we have a motion to table this?
I'll move to table to our next regular meeting.
Thank you, Rebecca. Tony seconds discussion? Everybody seconds. All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Okay, F, discussion on hotel occupancy funds for event promotions. What you have in your packet is the, what the heck is that? Oh. I got this from Amber, because one of my concerns is that our hot taxes might really take a real dive this year because of the COVID and the fact that the Bandera Lodge has been sold. And if everything works out according to the contracts, then the hotel will not be paying hot tax for the first few years of operation. But they are required to use it in a marketing plan approved by council to promote the city of Bandera. That's part of the agreement. So what you have before you, the highlighted yellowish greenish one, shows you that for the prior year, they paid $6,655.48 in taxes. The balance in our account is $29,011.47. So that's money that we haven't spent, that we can spend. This does not fall into the category of the general fund. It can't be used for anything except those projects which are legal for hot tax funds to be used for. Promotion for Bandera in any different way. I cannot tell you what the events are going to look like in the coming year with the way the things have gone so far with the COVID and the, you know, the rate this illness is spreading. But there are events that we normally have that people have been asking me, can we apply, can we apply, can we apply? For instance, the Chamber's already had Buckfest. Well, they could apply and get approved and then present a post-event report to qualify for the funds if that's what council would like to do. My question is, would you want to do that this year? Could we open it up for applications? Rebecca?
I know that there was a meeting held with certain event coordinators and the organizations that host a lot of our annual events. And I would like to just request that they come and discuss kind of a plan for group marketing, coordinated efforts, just kind of to hear a follow-up on, to see if they have any kind of a plan in mind for coordinating their marketing. Another question that I have is, in addition to helping to fund some of the advertising for events, maybe council can get some ideas together on other projects that we might be able to tackle, or we might be able to partner with other organizations to tackle in order to promote Bandera for various reasons, outside of events even. So I think we might could use some of these funds in a different way, and in addition to continue to help support the advertising costs of the events. But I really do want to hear back from that group that met.
Well, do you want to reach out,
I'd be happy to.
coordinate something and we can address this later? Or council, would you like to have other comment about it? What do you want to do about this? Yes, Jerry.
I agree with Rebecca, I'd like to hear from them,
Me too.
see what their ideas are, and then we can go from there. Kind of spin off from that, because I mean,
Okay.
I've got some ideas too, but they've been doing it a lot longer.
Right.
I'm sorry, I was just checking some numbers,
That's okay.
make sure that, yes, ma'am.
So maybe it would be appropriate to request a sort of a short workshop that's like either immediately before or immediately following a regular meeting, that we could really just sit down and have open, informal discussions about some ideas and marketing, and keeping in mind that this potential, the Best Western, their funds are going to, I have a good feeling that they're going to create some pretty exceptional marketing, and they have a big platform, and they have the ability to plug into their branding and all kinds of things they can do that could really propel the marketing.
They will be presenting us their market plan on January the 7th, so.
Well, what a great day for this little
So that would be a
workshop.
great day to put the workshop in place as well.
I think we should.
Alrighty then.
Cool. January
So,
7th.
instead of tabling this, why don't we have a motion to set a workshop with CVB, BBA, blah, 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 yak, yak, yak. Yes, Rebecca.
Okay.
Or we could postpone it. We can't table it because we won't be ready to address
Well,
it.
it's not, it's just a discussion item. I don't know that any action is really required. I think we've kind of formally, do you want something in the form of a motion?
Nope,
Do
I
you-
was trying to think
that-
of something to get us out of it.
I think we can move on, personally.
All right, let's move on then. Council, you agree? All right, so we're gonna shoot for a workshop on January 7th if we can get everybody together. Okay. All right, now, item 7, closed session. The city council will convene in closed session to pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074 personnel to discuss the salaries of an officer or employee, to wit, exempt employee, city secretary, HR director Jill Shelton, city treasurer Amber Kinsey, public works director Martin Park, and administrator. It's 7:54. I am recessing the regular meeting. It's 8:04. I'm reconvening the regular session. Item 8 is action following the closed session. The city council will convene following closed session to consider any action recommended to be taken during the closed session. Rebecca?
Move to postpone.
Rebecca makes a motion to postpone.
I'll second.
Darcy seconds. Discussion? All in favor? All in favor. We'll postpone this one. This will not necessarily come up on the next agenda because it is postponed, as long as we understand that. Okay, all in favor.
Yeah, okay, that's why I
But
stated
if
it
we
that
get it on the
way.
next agenda, we will.
Okay.
Okay, item 9, request and announcements. Oh, no, request by council to put items on a future agenda. Anybody? Rebecca?
I do. I'd like to see us address the vacant city administrator position. So whether that's reviewing the job description, defining kind of our plan of action. And I would like to
I agree.
address that
I
at
can
our
give some
next
follow-up
meeting.
on that after the meeting, if you
Okay.
would like.
I have one more, if I may.
Sure.
Make EDC board seat appointments.
Absolutely.
Please.
Because we may have some more resignations. That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Tony,
Is this future agenda or comments in general?
Agenda.
we don't have a comment agenda.
Okay.
Did you want to make a comment or, okay.
I have a comment, but it's not a future agenda.
Okay. Jerry?
I'd like to request a discussion, possible action regarding a complaint against city mayors and by city council member.
Okay, Jerry, I actually followed through on the procedure for for complaints, if you want to file a complaint against me, what you will do formally is file it with Jill, and then we will get it on the next agenda.
Okay,
But you need to file your complaint with Jill.
that's why I was asking if this needs to
Yeah,
be
that's why
done
this
now.
one's kinda weird,
Because I
yeah.
also want to have a discussion with violations by Jill, the city secretary.
So you want a complaint against the city secretary?
I guess if that's what you would determine it as.
Okay, do you want to have a discussion under the broad 501074 about personnel? To discuss
it's
the
gonna
job
be-
duties,
Actually, more under section 1.03.
under section what?
1.03.
That's the ordinance that he's
Oh, the
referring to,
ordinance
but I
103?
do,
Okay,
if I
ma'am.
may.
Yes,
I do believe that what the mayor is saying, Jerry, is that there's that specific agenda item language that would allow to discuss someone's specific performance. And if I'm understanding right, that's what
And
you're
saying
wanting.
it's what?
it's 55, it's in the local government code.
551?
It's actually
Well,
on our, it's 551.074 local government code. This is the one that has the very extensive, detailed, discussion, job duties,
Performance.
discipline,
Yeah.
all the way down through, and I'll send you a draft of it before we go on, so you can make sure it's what you want on there.
Okay,
You good with that?
I'm good with it.
Cool. Any other requests?
What are we,
Okay, we're down, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So the action item last meeting, that we were gonna post the administrator's position, and y'all were gonna use all current information with current salary, was that done?
No, ma'am, it was not, because of this decision by council to change the, potentially change the salaries of the,
That's what I was
Exempt
afraid you were gonna
employees?
say.
and the question was, what do you want to set his salary as? Because we cannot,
So what we said last meeting
Is
was
that what
that
you
we were
wanna go
gonna
with?
use what we had existing so that we could start getting applications.
Okay.
Because we cannot have no
Absolutely.
city administrator again.
we will have that out on the TML website and locally, we can't get it
And
out
as we
locally.
interview, if we don't have all of it resolved, we can say these things are
I'll get
potentially.
the job description out to you, we can review it on the next meeting. That good with everybody? Yes.
And I'm not sure how city government works as far as job postings and stuff like that. Do we have to post it with a determinate amount of salary? Or can we say as determined by, applicable skills, knowledge,
I discussed that.
education?
Because, Jill was out of town on vacation, now she's out on sick leave, and I wanted to get this thing done. And it was my understanding that in order to get responses that were interested responses, you should post a salary on it. Yes,
Okay, I have a bit of an issue getting into this much of a discussion over something that's not an agenda item.
You're absolutely
But I
right.
wanna get back to the point that I requested to put this on the agenda. Specifically because there are elements that I wanna talk about related to third-party assistance in recruitment and this whole process. And I would like to have the ability to discuss that as an option at our next council meeting. Which is related to the job posting, so
I
I don't know how
understand
you wanna
what you
handle
just
that.
said, and I will review the minutes, I understand what you just said, I'll follow through on that.
Okay.
And then I will get back to you on that. Yes, ma'am?
Okay,
So I was gonna say, what we agree, what was stated in the last meeting was at the end, and I asked specifically, according to that agenda item, did we need to make a motion to move forward with the posting?
Yes.
And we all said no, it was kind of a formality, we were gonna use what we currently had. I don't think that would forego what you're saying.
agree.
I think we
I
need
agree.
to,
I
yeah,
don't think so either.
okay.
thank you.
I don't wanna, because I agree with that, but.
Just a comment, I
Here,
fully support Tony's stance on, we need to get this moving. I thought it
Absolutely.
was already moving.
nobody wants it more than
And
me.
just a question, is that, do we routinely post it online, in the newspaper? What kind of
We-
advertising is normally
Okay,
done for this?
TML is a very popular website for government employees seeking employment, or even those who are, at this time, everybody's unemployed, but of that
Point of
stature, I
order,
mean,
it's
that,
not on the agenda,
experience.
Mayor.
Hmm?
Point of order, it's not on the agenda.
You're absolutely right. I'll discuss that with you anytime.
Okay.
Okay, all right, we're all good.
You're
right, you're
I
absolutely
wanna
right.
discuss it too, but.
That's why
I don't
it'll be
wanna
on our
get
next
in trouble.
agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got that out of the way. Announcements by council?
Oh, I'm gonna just give props and big thanks to all of the supporters of Fish for Fun. You guys did a great job, and thank you to all of our sponsors.
Great
It's a
turnout.
great event.
Yay, Keely. Yay, sponsors. Yay, Tony for helping. Yay,
Great
Darcy for
sponsor. I
helping.
know. I
Yay,
was-
Will and Willie.
Unfortunately, I
Did you
couldn't.
give all the fishing rods out?
Okay,
There were a lot.
Yeah?
There were a lot. There were a lot of kids.
I move to adjourn.
thank you, Rebecca.
Let her do it. Let her
Jerry,
do it.
I'll second that.
second. Okay, any discussion about adjourning? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Okay. 8:12.